Thank you for listening to this week's audio notes on the rapid training evolution. For more information on this topic and many more, please visit our website at focusintegration.com.
Picture this for a second. Close your eyes if you have to. It's that classic, almost cinematic image of a factory floor from maybe 20, 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the seasoned veteran, let's call him the old guard. He's got grease under his fingernails. He knows every single squeak, every rattle.
He knows the machine by heart.
Exactly. And trailing right behind him, like a shadow, is the apprentice, the new guy.
The classic apprenticeship model. It's ingrained in how we think about work.
It is. The new guy is just watching every move, listening to the war stories, learning the trade through sheer osmosis. It's almost romantic, right?
It is. That slow, steady passing of the torch, it feels stable.
It feels safe. But we're looking at a report today that suggests this whole image isn't just nostalgic. It's actually a dangerous fantasy for modern manufacturers.
It's a powerful image, and honestly, it's how humanity has transferred skills for centuries. But if we look at the hard data, the source material we have in front of us today, that image is effectively an antique, a relic. And relying on it is causing massive failures in the supply chain.
Failures is a strong word. I mean,
Yeah.
Sure, times change, but is the concept of mentoring really dead?
The concept isn't dead, but the conditions that allowed it to work, they're gone. The days of the 6-month apprenticeship, the long shadowing phase.
The idea that you have weeks to get a new hire up to speed.
That luxury has just evaporated. The industry doesn't have the time, and to be honest, the workers don't have the patience.
So that really sets the stage for today's deep dive. We are looking at a source that paints a pretty stark picture of the industry right now.
Oh, yeah.
It talks about high turnover, attention spans that are measured in minutes,
Yeah.
and the total evaporation of what they call tribal knowledge.
And that's the core tension. The workforce has changed, fundamentally. But here is the kicker. The machines have just gotten more complex.
Right.
So you have this widening gap. You have a skill level walking in the door that is arguably lower mechanically than 30 years ago, and a skill level required to keep the lights on that is higher than ever.
And the mission for this deep dive is to answer one core question. And honestly, when I read this in the source material, it just sounded impossible. The question is, how do you get a worker ready on day one, literally their first shift, when they have zero mechanical background?
And the machine they're operating is basically a spaceship.
Yeah, it does sound impossible if you're looking at it through that old lens.
It does. But the report we're analyzing today is all about HMI-driven rapid training evolution.
Okay, let's break down the acronyms first. HMI,
Human-machine interface.
the screen.
Right, the screen you interact with on the machine. And the argument here is that by completely rethinking what that screen does, we can cut training time from months down to hours.
Hours. That is a bold claim. Usually when we talk about training, we're talking about massive binders sitting in a classroom for a week.
Maybe some PowerPoint slides if you're lucky.
Right. You're saying the source argues we can skip all that.
The source is saying we must skip all that. It's not presented as like a luxury upgrade or a nice-to-have feature. This is framed as a survival mechanism.
A survival mechanism.
If factories don't figure out how to bridge this gap immediately, getting people productive instantly, they go under.
Let's unpack the why before we get to the how, because I think a lot of us still have that apprenticeship model stuck in our heads.
Of course.
You think, well, if we just hire better people or train them longer, it'll be fine. Why is the source so adamant that the old way is dead?
It comes down to friction. The old model oral tradition, repetition, mentoring it, relies on stability.
Right. It assumes the worker is going to stay for 5 or 10 years.
And it assumes the veteran mentor has time to teach.
And isn't overbooked the understatement of the century for most senior operators?
Precisely. The veteran operators are putting out fires. They don't have time to babysit. But more importantly, the source highlights a critical disconnect with the new workforce. It says new hires have minutes of attention, not days.
That feels a little personal. But I get it. We live in a TikTok world. Information comes fast and short.
If you hand someone a 300-page manual, it's a paperweight.
It is.
It goes deeper than just attention span, though. It's the economics of turnover. Imagine spending 6 weeks training someone.
All that time and money.
The veteran's time, the classroom costs, the lost production, and they quit in week 7. You haven't just lost a worker, you've burned the production time you used to train them.
So the knowledge just leaves the building before it ever sticks.
Exactly.
The source made a comparison here that really stuck with me. It said, trying to use legacy training in this environment is like trying to learn a complex board game while the board is on fire.
That is a vivid way to put it, and it's accurate. You can't sit down and read the rule book when the crisis is happening now.
And the factory floor is always in a state of low-level crisis.
You need players who can jump in and play immediately without reading the rule book first.
So the paradigm shift is about when the training happens.
Yes. The expert analysis here is that training can no longer happen before the job. You can't front-load it. The training has to happen in the job.
While you are doing it.
While you are doing it.
Which brings us to the star of the show, the HMI. Now, traditionally, when I think of an HMI, I think of buttons. Start, stop, maybe a speed dial.
Maybe a basic touchscreen if it's newer, but yeah, just a control panel.
Just a control panel.
Historically, yes. It was passive. It sat there waiting for you to tell it what to do. The rapid training evolution flips that. The HMI isn't just a screen anymore.
It's the trainer.
It is the primary trainer.
The source had this great not list that really clarified it for me. It said the modern HMI is not a binder. It's not a supervisor. And it's not a classroom.
And think about why those distinctions matter. A binder is static, nobody reads it. A supervisor is expensive and scarce.
They can't stand next to every new hire all day.
Right. And a classroom is disconnected from reality, but the HMI is right there in front of you while you work.
The verbs they used were really active too. It said the HMI must teach, guide, explain, confirm, warn, and coach.
It's almost like having that veteran standing over your shoulder, but digitized.
Better, in some way.
In some ways, yeah. Because a veteran might get tired or frustrated or skip a step because they assume you know it.
Or they just explain it in a confusing way.
The machine doesn't assume anything. And there's a huge shift here from verbal to visual.
This is something I struggle with personally. If you tell me 10 steps to fix a jam, I'm going to forget step 3 by the time you get to step 7.
That's just human nature. The source points out that humans struggle with listening, memorizing, and interpreting words, especially in a loud factory.
Yeah.
But we excel at processing visuals. So instead of a text box saying, rotate the valve 90 degrees, the HMI shows an animation of the valve turning.
Or a real-time camera overlay. That was the example that blew my mind.
Augmented reality.
You hold your tablet up or look at the screen, and it just overlays the instructions right onto the actual machine.
Exactly. It uses photos of correct orientation before and after visuals. It removes the interpretation gap. You don't have to wonder, is this the valve they meant?
You just match the picture, which effectively kills the classroom session.
You don't need it. You don't need to sit in a room for 4 hours learning the theory of the machine. You just walk up to it.
And you are productive immediately.
That is the day one promise.
Yeah.
You are contributing value from the first hour because the system is bridging that skill gap for you.
Now, I want to talk about Bill.
Bill.
You know Bill.
Yeah.
Every factory has a Bill. The source specifically mentions this. Ask Bill. He knows the trick. Or, only Maria knows how to fix that specific jam.
Ah, yes. The key person risk. We used to call this tribal knowledge.
Right.
And for a long time, having tribal knowledge was seen as a badge of honor. It meant you had experts. But in this new context, tribal knowledge is a massive liability.
Because if Bill calls in sick,
the line stops. Or if Bill decides to retire, 30 years of knowledge walks out the door with him.
the source calls this holding the factory hostage to specific personalities.
It sounds dramatic, but it's true. If the knowledge only exists in Bill's head, the company doesn't actually own it. Bill owns it.
And Bill can leave.
Precisely. So the HMI-driven evolution is about capturing that wisdom. You take what Bill knows, the trick to fixing the jam, the precise way to load the material, and you program it into the digital workflow.
You digitize the wisdom.
So it becomes a corporate asset, not a personal secret.
But it's not just showing you what to do. The source talks about digital guardrails. This is where it gets really cool.
This is a game changer for safety and quality.
It doesn't just suggest the right path. It blocks the wrong one.
Right. The system locks the sequence. Let's say there's a safety gate. If you try to open the guard before the pressure is released, the HMI won't let you. It prevents the action.
Okay.
Or if you need to heat the material to 400 degrees, it won't let you move to the next step until the sensor confirms 400 degrees.
It's like bowling with bumpers. You literally cannot throw a gutter ball.
In a way, yes. It confirms completion before letting you move on. So take a complex changeover that used to be this tribal event where everyone stood around hoping Bill got it right.
And if you missed one setting, you'd run scrap for an hour.
Now it's an error-proofed, repeatable sequence,
So you don't need to know the sequence. You just need to follow the prompt.
which ensures consistency. It doesn't matter if it's your first day or your 1000th day. The process is identical.
Speaking of your 1000th day, though, I can see a potential problem here. If I'm an expert and I've been doing this for 5 years, do I really want the machine to treat me like a newbie? Please press the red button.
Good job.
Yeah, that would drive me insane.
That is a very valid concern. If you treat an expert like a novice, they will disengage. They'll feel patronized.
Micromanaged by a computer.
Exactly. The source addresses this directly with adaptive learning. The system isn't static. It recognizes who is logged in.
It's the gamification aspect, right? Like choosing your difficulty level in a video game.
Exactly. The source outlines 3 modes: beginner, intermediate, and expert.
Okay, walk me through these. What does beginner mode look like?
Beginner mode is heavy on the hand-holding. More visuals, slower pacing. It asks for confirmation at every single step. It offers extra training tips, maybe links to short videos explaining why you're doing what you're doing.
It assumes you know nothing.
It assumes nothing, which is perfect for day 1.
But then you graduate.
Right. As you log more hours and complete cycles without errors, you move to intermediate. The navigation gets faster, steps are condensed, fewer prompts.
And then finally, expert mode.
The speed run.
The speed run.
Essentially. Expert mode is about quick access, streamlined paths, advanced troubleshooting. It gets out of your way. It assumes you know the flow, so it only flags the anomalies.
I love that idea that the machine evolves as the worker evolves. It solves that frustration factor.
And it keeps the expert engaged. They aren't just pushing buttons. They have access to deeper diagnostics because the system trusts them.
But the guardrails are still there underneath.
Oh, yeah. And this is key. Even an expert can't bypass a critical safety lock.
Let's shift gears to maintenance. Because operating a machine is one thing. Fixing it when it breaks is a whole different beast.
Totally different.
Traditionally, this is where you needed that mechanical intuition. You know, the guy who could just listen to the motor, tilt his head, and say,
Yep, that's the rear bearing.
right.
Pattern recognition. That takes years, sometimes decades to develop. And again, we don't have years.
So how does the HMI fill that gap? You can't digitize intuition. Or can you?
You can digitize the data that leads to the intuition. The HMI provides fault explanations. So instead of just a blinking red light code E404,
But you have to look up in a manual somewhere.
right, it says pressure low in valve 3.
Yeah.
Then it lists likely causes. And then, this is the best part, it gives you a visual component map.
So it shows you exactly where valve 3 is, no hunting around for it.
Correct. It highlights the component on the screen. But there's one detail in the maintenance section that I found incredibly practical: the required tools checklist.
Oh, I missed that. What's that about?
Before you even start the repair, the screen tells you will need a 10mm wrench, a Phillips head screwdriver, and this specific seal.
That is brilliant. How many times have you walked all the way to a machine, realized you have the wrong wrench, walked all the way back?
It kills 20 minutes.
At least.
It saves massive amounts of time. It eliminates the trial and error of maintenance. You don't show up to the job unprepared.
This changes the role of everyone on the floor, especially the supervisors. The source had some pretty damning statistics about what they do all day.
Yes, the breakdown was startling. It said supervisors spend roughly 30% of their time training, 40% correcting mistakes,
10%.
and 20% troubleshooting.
That leaves, what, 10% for actually supervising? And 0% for improving anything.
They're essentially highly paid DB sitters and firefighters. They are constantly reacting to crises caused by the skill gap.
But if the HMI is doing the training,
Yeah.
and the HMI is preventing the mistakes with those guardrails,
Then the supervisor gets their job back. They stop being a teacher and start being a leader. They can coordinate, look at flow, look at logistics.
they move from putting out fires to managing the floor.
It elevates the entire management structure.
It seems like a win for the supervisor. But let's talk about the worker again, because the source brings up a really interesting psychological point in Section 6 about retention. We usually think people quit because of pay.
Money is a factor, but it's rarely the only factor. The source lists the psychological reasons for quitting: confusion, feeling overwhelmed, feeling unsupported, feeling unsafe.
Feeling stupid, that's the one that resonated with me. Nobody likes feeling stupid on their first day.
Exactly. Put yourself in their shoes. You are standing in front of $1 million machine. It is loud. It is dangerous.
Parts are moving fast.
And you don't know what to do. That is a high-stress environment. Confusion equals stress.
And stress leads to quitting.
Right. So the HMI experience is directly linked to retention. If the machine guides you, gives you instant feedback, and validates that you're doing it right, your confidence goes up.
Confidence is retention. That's the quote from the report.
It makes the job easier. And when the job is easier and you feel competent, you stay. It's not just about efficiency for the factory, it's about the emotional experience of the human being doing the work.
Right.
We're finally stopping the attempt to force humans to think like machines, memorizing codes and sequences, and instead designing machines that communicate like humans.
It's amazing how much of this technical report actually comes down to human psychology.
It's the only way forward. The workforce isn't going to suddenly revert to how it was in 1990. The technology has to bridge the gap.
So let's wrap this up. We've gone from the dusty nostalgia of The Apprentice to this high-tech vision of HMI-driven training, the rapid training evolution.
To summarize, it is a shift from the worker receiving training in a classroom to the system providing training continuously in real time.
Right at the point of action. And the big takeaway for me is that relying on memory, on Bill knowing the trick, is actually a failure mode now. It's a bug, not a feature.
Survival depends on immediate capability. Can you walk in and do the job safely and correctly today? If the answer relies on a 6-month training curve, you have already lost.
That's a fascinating shift. But before we go, I want to leave you with a thought. This one has been nagging at me since we started reading this source.
What's on your mind?
Well, if the machine provides all the knowledge, if it tells you what tool to grab, shows you exactly which bolt to turn, prevents you from doing it wrong,
And troubleshoots the problem for you.
does the definition of a skilled worker change?
That is the big question.
Are we moving to a world where a skilled worker isn't someone who knows everything about the machine, but just someone who is good at following the interface?
Yeah.
And if that's the case, what happens to the value of human experience in the long run?
If the knowledge lives in the machine, is the human just the hands? It's something we'll all have to reckon with as this technology evolves. It solves the immediate problem, but it definitely changes the nature of the craft.
Something to think about next time you see a help wanted sign. Thanks for diving deep with us.
See you next time.
Thank you for listening to this week's audio notes on the rapid training evolution. For more information on this topic and many more, please visit our website at focusintegration.com.